Joining us this afternoon, Brad Bowman with the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. Brad, great to have you with us. Give me your quick read on the president and his East Room speech within the hour.
Thanks for the opportunity to join you. I was concerned yesterday about some of the statements coming out of the White House, where there was discussion of just sanctioning these two so-called new republics that Moscow just recognized in Luhansk and Donetsk. And I was hoping that today he would do much of what he did, and that is announce much more aggressive sanctions. These are not the most aggressive sanctions available, but they're much more aggressive than what was being contemplated publicly by the White House yesterday. So for that, I'm thankful. Clearly, though, the Biden administration is trying to balance two things. Go too weak, and you send Putin a message of weakness that, frankly, is a green light for additional aggression. Go too strong from the Biden administration's perspective, then you leave yourself no place to go when they escalate the aggression even further. So they're trying to find that tough but not too tough middle ground. And I'll want to dig into the details of these sanctions, but on first glance, they look like they have them about right. But I do worry that Putin has already maybe reconciled himself to the fact that he's going to be hit hard by sanctions, and that the pain associated with that is worth what he intends to accomplish in Ukraine. So I worry that he's almost discounted this already, and that's why I've been a little bit more focused on the delivery of weapons to Ukraine.
It does sort of sound like the risk-benefit analysis going on in Moscow right now. Now, we know that the American president said Russian elites and Russian sovereign debt will be the first two targets of this, and then there are a couple of banks, VEB and Russia's military bank. What's the net effect of that? Are you cutting off their credit? Are you limiting their ability to trade currency, that sort of thing?
It's hard to, so I mean, you're right, deterrence, right, is something in the mind of an adversary, right? So this is psychological, this is difficult business, it's tough to measure, it's going to be unsatisfying to statisticians and scientists. But, we know that a lot of Russian oligarchs, a lot of the people advising Vladimir Putin, this inner circle that he has, people have been speculating for a while, people with access to classified information have been speculating that he's not been well served by them, that he's been getting particularly hawkish advice from them about what to do in Ukraine. So if those individuals can't invest their money in Europe, they can't send their kids to study in Europe, they can't vacation in Europe, one can reasonably surmise that might start to affect their cost-benefit analysis and how they choose to advise Vladimir Putin. I think that's the general thinking behind it.
And while we're talking about sanctions, too, the Nord Stream gas pipeline, that's another way to, if you will, turn off the financial tap here, because Russia, no question, was thinking of that as a good way to bring money back into the country from Europe in exchange for oil and gas products.
No, it's a fair point. There's a lot of dynamics going on here, right? I mean, we know that the Biden administration lobbied Congress not to be aggressive on Nord Stream 2, actually went to the Capitol Hill and essentially was supporting the Kremlin line there. So that was disappointed. And I think Germany, I'm glad to see that they agreed to suspend Nord Stream 2, but I have been disappointed by Berlin's refusal to provide defensive weapons to Ukraine. Ukraine asked for ships and weapons, and they got 5,000 helmets instead of Berlin. And Berlin has attempted to justify that by saying, well, we don't send weapons to conflict zones or crisis zones. Well, that's actually not accurate. They send lots of weapons. They exported more weapons last year than any year previously. And in the year of 2017, the year of fire and fury, they sent weapons to South Korea, and they've also supported Baltic countries. So there's something a little sketchy going on in terms of Germany's unwillingness to provide weapons to Ukraine. And I do worry that Putin has read that and some of the Nord Stream 2 reluctance on Scholz's part as a weakness in the NATO alliance that might result in less severe consequences for the aggression he was already considering.
Brad, I grant you that tea leaf reading is an iffy business, but let's talk a little bit about what this could potentially mean. Even if the Russian invasion is fast going in, it's liable to be there for a while. Whatever this is that Vladimir Putin is planning, it's not a short-term fix. It's something that's going to be around for quite a while, so whatever these measures will be additive. Does that maybe strengthen the U.S. hand over time if you squeeze the finances of what it will be a very expensive invasion in terms of blood and treasure on the Russians. Does that speed things up, do you think?
Yeah, it's another great question. I used to work for years in the U.S. Senate and had the pleasure of staffing a senator who worked closely with Senator John McCain. And John McCain used to joke, that Russia is a gas station masquerading as a country. It's a bit of an oversimplification, but their economy is very dependent on energy exports. But the problem is, so is the global economy,
Sure.
right? And you heard in President Biden's comments today that he's very keen, for obvious reasons, to limit the effects of these sanctions on Americans in our economy. And for example, what we pay at the gas pump. I mean, oil prices are already way high, and they're probably going to go higher. And that's going to affect Americans that have the most, who have the least money. And so Biden's cognizant of that effect. So there's sanctions that will hurt Russia, and some of those sanctions will hurt us, and you can try to mitigate that. But, we do live in a global economy, but there's got to be consequences. I guess my main point is bravo on the sanctions. We probably need to go harder and fast, but I worry that that's not enough, that he's already, to use a Wall Street term, he's already kind of discounted that. And now he's moving ahead. What's he going to do in Ukraine? My glass ball, my forecasting ball is cloudy like most everyone's. But I do suspect he's going to look and see how we respond and just kind of going with what we've learned over the last decade or two. If he sees weakness, he's going to see a green light for additional aggression. And put yourself in the shoes of those Ukrainians on the line of contact right now in the Donbass. They're getting shelled. They're getting shelled, contrary to what Putin says. The Russian-backed separatists are the aggressors. They're getting shelled, and they're showing extraordinary restraint, right? Because if they respond, what will Putin do? Of course, he will use those Ukrainians defending their own country and their own territory, right, as pretext to push farther into Ukraine. Take all of the Donbass, push down to Mariupol, take additional steps. So he's constantly looking for real provocations. He's invented them up to this point, but he'll be no doubt looking for real provocations that he can use as an excuse for what he'd like to do anyway.
I am struck at this point, and admittedly we are just in the first few minutes of the first act of this play, that it has gone pretty much the way the White House expected and has been preparing the American people for. I wonder what happens when all of a sudden they go off that script and then something happens that we weren't expecting.
No, it's a fair question, but a lot of people were saying that we wouldn't see this too, right? So let's go back and look a week or two ago. I often get my predictions wrong, but many of us were predicting you would see at least this, if not more, and I was often discounted by people that said, no. And of course the Kremlin, let's not forget, was saying these are just military exercises, right? This massive buildup, larger than really anything we've seen in decades, they covered under the disguise of military exercises, which is very convenient and in my view was transparently cynical. Well, here we go. It was obviously not just military exercises. And now we're seeing reports of Russians in Belarus, big surprise, not going home, right? We see time and again when Russians arrive, Georgia, Crimea, Transnistria, Kaliningrad, they tend not to go home. Are we seeing a trend here?
Indeed we are. Nice to get the clear-eyed analysis of Brad Bowman from the Foundation of the Defense of Democracies. Brad, many thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Coming up on 12 minutes past the 3 o'clock hour, we'll take a break. Back with more news for you and an update on the forecast right after this.